Hiya, I'm Naya, and I really wanted to do an October challenge, but I just didn't know what. I think the first option I really wanted to do was OC-tober, but I already missed like 8 days or something, so that didn't happen. Then I decided to just make one video and one drawing for Halloween, and I really wanted to do my character who is inspired by Beelzebub, because she is very much Halloween themed. But then I realized that in order to talk about her, I need to talk about the other 8 demon lords that exist in my universe. And yes, I have an established universe for all my OCs, plus some of my friends' OCs also live in this universe. And yeah, my universe has its own version of hell, and its demons. So first things first, I should mention that I am sharing these characters with 2 of my closest friends, so there are 9 demon lords and each of us own 3, so I can't really talk about all of their personalities, but I can talk about their kingdom and how it's run. I'm also the one who designed all 9 of them, so I'll talk a little bit about the design choices that I made. These guys are also inspired by the 7 deadly sins, or demons within the demonology. And Dante's Inferno is used as inspiration for this version of hell itself. When someone in my universe dies, they can end up in one of the 9 kingdoms, the first being the kingdom of melancholy and the only place in hell that allows sinners to try and redeem themselves. I hear some of you thinking, is melancholy really a sin? Well, I read in Wikipedia that in early Christianity they thought that the lack of joy was regarded as a willful refusal to enjoy the goodness that God gave us. In other terms, if somebody was depressed, they weren't allowed into heaven, which is really messed up if you ask me, but now, at least now, it's not considered a sin, and in my universe, people only end up in the melancholy kingdom if their actions unintentionally infected others. So like if they were depressed and it caused the other person to also be depressed or something like that, then they could end up in the melancholy kingdom. But you know, they weren't bad people, their state of mind was just really messed up, so I don't think it's fair for these people to end up in the deepest depths of hell. Which is why the ruler of this kingdom, named Kedea, acts more like a therapist for these sinners rather than somebody who punished them. It's also why I designed her to look more human compared to the other demon lords. Actually, the only demonic thing that stands out to her are her horns and her more pinkish skin color, but overall she looks more human. I also gave her the clothes of somebody who just attended a funeral, because I feel like with the Victorian aesthetic within this kingdom, it kind of suits better. And plus, basically none of her sinners are really bad people, like I said before, so she doesn't really feel like she needs to dress up more like a businesswoman or something, but more like somebody who sympathizes with these humans or sinners. And since every deadly sin is associated with a color, I decided to use light pink for melancholy. According to Google, it is associated with innocence as well as having a calming and soothing effect on people. So I figured it was just a perfect color for her, plus the black and the grey colors kinda emulate this more darker and sad feeling, I guess. And I don't know, I feel like it fits her. Her name Kedea is also Greek, that means take care. And then, I didn't think I mentioned her last name, but her last name is Tristis, which means sorrowful. And I think the name Kedea Tristis just fits a demon who rules over a kingdom that basically hosts souls of humans who were depressed. I feel like she would also be the most understanding of the demon lords, but at the same time, she doesn't deal with the worst of humanity compared to the others. Now, the second kingdom of this version of hell is the kingdom of lust. And I think the most of us already know what the sinners of lust might be like. But just in case, I will say that these people often act in a non-consensual or extremely inappropriate way. And, you know, just disgusting people overall. These sinners are also treated harshly by the demons who live within this kingdom, which are mostly incubi and succubi. And you know you've messed up when even a demon, which whole thing is lust, thinks that you're a disgusting human being. Like, these demons are freaks themselves, but At least they understand what the word no means. Also, the fun thing about this kingdom is that it used to be ruled by a demon whose name was Layla Eden. She was basically somebody who viewed herself as a goddess of love, so she cared about love coming from both sides and not just one side who is forcing themselves on the other person. But this isn't about her. This is about the current demon lord named Addis Deus. Layla just kind of forced him to take over her job so she could retire and do her own thing. Anyway, Addis is much more of a sucker for simple romance like finding your soulmate and going on cute dates. However, his views on the sinners are pretty much the same as Layla and the other lust demons. I designed Addis to look like an incubi, but I still kept the more lustful elements low-key. Like I said, he is more somebody who is into simple romance, and I want it to represent in his outfit, if that makes sense. Since the sin of lust is the color blue, I decided to mix that color up with pinks and purples. Other than that, I just added some heart motifs on his horns, tails, and belt because I feel like most demons within Lust would have heart motifs anywhere on their bodies or outfits. The Kingdom of Lust is also more or less inspired by a red district area or city area with a lot of neon lights. I know this concept for the Kingdom of Lust has been used before, but I really don't care, honestly. I also think that this kingdom is the most technologically advanced compared to the other 8 kingdoms. And last but not least about this demon lord is that his name, Addis Deus, is obviously inspired by the demon Asmodeus, who is also the demon that represents the sin of lust. The third kingdom is the kingdom of gluttony, and sinners of gluttony are basically people who took too many resources in life that caused harm to others. Think of having too much food to the point that they are wasting it, like those movies or clips of people driving over their food for some reason and depriving the needs from others. I personally really hate those TikToks, but we're not talking about that. In hell, these sinners are deprived of these needs. They don't get food, they don't get homes, and are basically treated like garbage by the demons. And when they do try to steal something, they are basically being thrown in a dungeon in which they are basically the food for the kingdom's animals. And since sinners can't die, it feels like they are being eaten for all eternity. Demons within this kingdom are also portrayed as looking as insects, dolls, or pigs/boars, or a combination of one of these 3. And this kingdom is ruled by the demon lord Gulabubs. Since orange is the color that represents gluttony, I decided to go ham with the Halloween theme, as you can see. The kingdom itself also looks basically like a place with just a lot of farms and Halloween themed buildings and such, and the main colors are orange, purple, and red. Personally, this kingdom is my favorite, and I'm not saying that because Gula is one of the 3 characters that I own, but I feel like with Halloween, the sin of gluttony can also work really well, with the idea that people do steal candy from other people or even tamper with candy by putting little razor blades in them. Which would really piss Gula off. She cares a lot about food, and she is basically like this universe's Gordon Ramsay, to say, because she is pretty sweet, but she is very passionate about food. Since Gula is based off the actual demon lord of gluttony, which is Beelzebub, the lord of the flies, I decided to add in some fly motifs in her, which is why I decided to give her the horns, the eyes, the clothing, and the legs are pretty much more fly-ish, if that makes sense. I also gave her a mouth on her stomach simply because I thought it was fun, and I like to think that this mouth mimics her current state of mood, so like it smiles when she is happy and it frowns when she is upset. The next kingdom is the kingdom of greed, and sinners of greed are scammers, people who stole and financially benefited from ideas from others. Some sinners went as far as to killing others for their own financial benefits. Even now that they're in hell, some of these sinners will still try to steal money or goods from the greed demons, or even the demon lord himself. And well, these demons don't take lightly into their stuff being stolen, so often these sinners are forced into working in harsh conditions without breaks or without pay, obviously, and these sinners also live on the streets. Since this kingdom is also inspired by ancient Egypt, I like to think that these sinners are also forced into working on new buildings for the demon lord, and that they don't get machines to help them with this, so they have to do everything by hand and lifting every single block with a group of other sinners, which is just painful, I imagine. But it's what they deserve. As for the greed demons overall, they are very hard workers and take pride in their work. But not so much pride as the pride demons. Wait a second. They also really respect their king, which is Mammon Avar. And he is the only demon lord whose name we actually decided to not change, simply because we couldn't think of another name, and I think Mammon is... well, you know, it's a pretty solid name. Like I said, the kingdom is inspired by ancient Egypt, so I wanted Mammon to look like a pharaoh. Pharaoh. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically an Egyptian king. And I decided to also give him some mummy-esque aesthetic, because often than not, these pharaohs were being buried with their treasures and such and being mummified, so it was perfectly for Mammon. So he is basically a pharaoh mummy demon king. Since Mammon is a businessman, I decided to give him a suit, but compared to, for example, the Demon Lord of Pride, Mammon's suit is very more casual. Mammon is also one of the 3 demon lords who has a child of his own, and his daughter is his most prized possession, and this is why he refers to her as his treasure. So I like to think that when sinners hear about Mammon's treasure, they just think about money or gold, but in reality it's just Mammon's daughter. I should also mention, I completely forgot to mention this, but the color of the Sin of Greed is yellow, so obviously I went with a yellow and gold color palette for Mammon. I also decided to add in bits of purples, because purple, while it is the color of pride, it's also the color of royalty, and Mammon does take his position as king very seriously. Next up is the Kingdom of Envy. And sinners of envy are often resentful towards others who have what they want or feel like they deserve to have more than the other person. They could also use this person for their own benefits and then backstab them in the end. The kingdom itself is mostly out of water and swamps and only a few islands, so sinners are often forced to swim until they find one of these islands. But the fun thing is, they have to watch out in the water for demons who will try and drown them or creatures who will hunt them down. And honestly, some demons in Envy do it for fun, and I don't blame them. And to some, it's more or less like a competitive sport that they like to do. And because of these reasons, most of the demons in Envy are based on aquatic creatures like fish and cephalopods or crabs or something like that. Just creatures that you think of when you are near a beach or water-like area. The Demon Lord of Envy is Leviathan, and I know I said Mammon was the only demon of ours who was really named after an existing demon, but thinking about it now, Livy's name is very similar to Leviathan, who is the Demon of Envy. As for her design, I knew that green was the color associated with Envy, so I just knew that I had to incorporate more of a dark sea-ish feeling in her design. Like, basically making it look like a dark water area on her dress. That's the main inspiration, with also the, like, water vines sticking out of her design. As for Livy herself, she is mostly based on a Lamia type demon, and I know Lamias are more reptiles rather than sea creatures, so I could have easily made her more mermaid-like, but I figured Lamia would be more fun with her color palette. And I like to think that she hides her legs with her dress, so yeah, I thought it would be just a fun design. As for her hair, fun fact, her hair is inspired by the girl from Ring, because of the water in her hair, and that's why she has one eye covered. It's not like she has anything wrong with her eye, she just likes one to be covered for some reason. Let's just say it's a stylistic choice. I also added bits of pinks in her design so that it isn't just like all green and you have something that stands out. Plus pink, I believe, is the opposite to green in the color wheel, so yeah, it just works out in the end. Next up is the Kingdom of Vainglory, and like Melancholy, Vainglory isn't considered a sin anymore. Basically, from what I understand from Wikipedia, is that vainglory is just constantly bragging about yourself, your achievements, your looks, and whatever else you can constantly brag about. I believe nowadays vainglory is just basically considered a sin of pride, but in this universe the two of them are still considered separate sins. And if you even dare to mention to the Demon Lord that vainglory is the same as pride, you will probably have your head chopped off because he doesn't take lightly into being compared to the Demon Lord of Pride. And I figure that in this universe, most sinners of vainglory were narcissistic and selfish while they were alive. While yes, the demons of vainglory can also be full of themselves, they're still humble towards demons from other kingdoms that they respect. As for the Demon Lord of Vainglory, his name is Maxim Vanitas. God, I hope I said that right. Anyway, I wasn't sure what to do with his design first, but then I was somehow inspired by vampires because they are young and beautiful forever, and I figured that the demon of a sin that basically goes about beauty and such would be perfect for a concept like eternal beauty or like everlasting beauty. So the kingdom itself is inspired by Romanian castles, and as you can see for the Demon Lord, I also gave him more of a attire that kind of resembles Dracula, but not really. Like for Melancholy, I had to come up with a specific color to give him. So I decided to give him the Bordeaux color because it stands for, or is associated with luxury, which I figured would suit this kind of sin the best. I should also mention that the demons in Vainglory often have like physical features that don't really make a lot of sense. Like take Maxim for example, he has goat legs. And there are some demons who have like multiple arms, multiple ears, something like that, just something silly going on. And Maxim is also one of the 3 demon lords who also has a child. And the difference between his kid and Mammon's kid is that his kid is already a fully grown woman, and she would be ready to take over the throne as soon as Maxim decides that he had enough, which probably won't be anytime soon. Next up is the Kingdom of Wrath, and sinners who are in the kingdom are usually violent towards others, and this includes abusers, people who like to hurt others for fun, or people who just lash out on others for no particular reason. And also almost every unaliver ends up either in this kingdom or in the Kingdom of Pride. It really depends on what drove them to unalive somebody, if you know what I mean, because I don't know if YouTube takes kindly to the word that I actually want to say. Better be safe than sorry, guys. The Demon Lord of Wrath is named Ira Venge. Like Ira Venge, get it? Anyway, I like to think of her as the big unofficial honcho of hell itself. She is probably the demon lord that is respected the most by demons and feared by sinners. And for that reason, I designed Ira to look more like an everyday devil, or what somebody will imagine when you ask them to think of a devil or hell. And it helps with this idea that the color associated with wrath is also red. So I decided to also add fire in her design, because often when you see in cartoons somebody get angry, they have like steam coming out of their ears or something like that. And I also thought it would be funny to shape her horns like an angry eyebrow. So she is also the only demon lord without eyebrows. She just constantly looks pissed off, and I think it's funny. And compared to the other demon lords, her clothing are also the most comfortable looking, because she wants to be comfortable when she is about to kick somebody's butt. I also added in some blues in her design so that it isn't just red, yellow, and orange. And the blue does help her eyes stand out a little bit, so I figured it just looks nice. Plus, blue flames are also hotter than red flames, so it works perfectly. As for the demons who live in Wrath, they too are very much typical devil looking, if that makes sense. They also tend to look like goats, but I like to think that goats are like a very common feature within demons because the animal is just so very much associated with the devil. I have no idea why. I think goats kind of look cute, but you know, it is what it is. As for the kingdom itself, it's very much just what you think of hell, actually. Just a place that's on fire constantly. And the fun thing is the demons are immune to this fire, but sinners aren't, so sinners in wrath basically just burn for all eternity. The second to last kingdom is the kingdom of sloth, and sinners of sloth are people who neglected others. Basically, they are people who didn't take care or didn't take any actions when others needed them. Either they did it by ignoring the problem or just looking the other way, which is, I guess, the same thing. Anyway, for example, they could hear somebody having a life or death situation in the room next door, and sinners of sloth would just choose to ignore it by doing something else completely and, for example, not calling 911 or something like that. Of course, you have the flight and freeze response, and obviously people who do suffer from the freeze response don't immediately end up in sloth, especially when in their conscious they do want to help but they just can't, and that doesn't automatically mean that when a sinner dies or when a person dies that they end up in sloth, or in hell for that matter, just to be very clear. But if a sinner does end up in sloth, they're basically thrown into the bottom parts of the kingdom, where they will always have to be on the lookout for creatures that are trying to hunt them down and kill them over and over, since death is no escape in hell. And I just realized that that's the motto for Dead by Daylight, but I'm not gonna change it. Anyway, let's get back to the subject at hand. The Demon Lord of Sloth. The Demon Lord of Sloth is named Sally Gore. Since sloth is often associated with the animal that is a sloth, or sleep, I decided to give Sally the most adorable design. And I figured the animal that is often associated with sleep is a sheep. So as you can see, I decided to give them more of a curly hair that's in the shape of a sheep. And they do have ram horns, but I guess sheeps... I guess rams are kind of like sheeps. Or family at least. They also have the snout, the legs and the hands of that sheep. And the hair does resemble a night sky, and their skin is light blue because that's the color of the sin of sloth. As for the multiple eyes, that's purely just a visual flair that I wanted to add, because with just 2 eyes, Sally just kind of looked too normal. And the multiple eyes work well for them. As for the kingdom itself, it's basically just a very mountain-like area where it's night all the time. I don't know how else to explain it. And the demons in Sloth are also more small, cute, sheep-looking beings. And finally, we have arrived in the final kingdom, which is the kingdom of pride. The sin most people believe that created the other sins. Sinners of pride often think highly of themselves and are not willing to accept their mistakes or wrongdoings. Sinners of pride could have done something that is associated with another sin, but still end up in pride if they truthfully believe that what they have done is what they needed to be done, or if they truly believe that they have done nothing wrong at all. And the demons within pride have all been fallen angels at some point, which is why most of, if not all of them, are still wearing armor or have wings, and they still respect their demon lord, who was the angel that actually kind of created their downfall. So the demon lord of pride is Zephyr Lux, and I really wanted him to not just look like a demon king, but he needed to be the demon king. I know I said that Era is a big honcho, but Zephyr would be more powerful than she is. Oh well, correction, he is more powerful than her. So, we haven't really talked about power dynamics, but I believe Zephyr is number 1 and Era would be number 2. Obviously, Zephyr's counterpart in the biblical version is Lucifer, and I read that Lucifer's angel wings were replaced with bat wings. So that's why I gave Zephyr bat wings, or bat-like looking wings too. And since demons make deals with humans all the time, I wanted to make him look like a businessman, so I gave him a purple suit with gold accents. And since purple is the color associated with pride, and it stands for royalty, I figured, yeah, that kind of suits him perfectly. I also gave him a crown to really show off that he is the king of hell. And did he get this from Mammon, or did Zephyr beg for the crown? We'll never know.
Zephyr also has 2 daughters from 2 different relationships. His first daughter is between him and a succubus, and his second daughter is between him and a human. Normally within royalty, the oldest daughter or oldest child takes over the throne from the family, but in hell it would be the child who embraces the kingdom's sin more. Which in this case is the youngest child. She is very much prideful like her dad, but she would never admit it. As for the kingdom, it's very much more of a snow paradise in which hell literally is frozen over. And the reason why Zephyr basically created the more winter look for his kingdom is because winter was the favorite season from his late wife, who sadly passed away, and this wife would be the human that his youngest child is also the daughter of. Wish I could tell you more about their relationship, but sadly, this video is already as long as it is, so I have to stop here. And these were all of the 9 Demon Lords. I really hope you enjoyed me rambling about these characters. There is honestly so much more that I could say about each of them, but I have to know when to stop before my videos get like an hour-long essay. Plus, like I said at the beginning, not all of them are completely mine. I designed all of them, but I only really own 3. But if you thought that they were interesting, I suggest you follow me on my socials, because these guys play a huge role in my universe, or my OC's universe. So if you really like these guys and want to know more about my OCs, you could also subscribe to this channel. I'm planning on making more OC videos in the future. And to you, I say have a nice day or night, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye bye!